Hi, in this video today, I'm going to talk about how to include log functions or exponential functions in your project. So first, a little bit of review. Remember that a polynomial has a base of x, or whatever variable it's going to be, but it has a base of x, and then the exponent is a number. That's a polynomial. That's different. On the project, there is a space that you have to do an exponential, and sometimes people think that these are exponentials. These are not exponentials. These are polynomials. So exponential is when you have a number as a base, and the exponent is the variable. And so 2 to the x, 3 to the x, 4 to the x, and so forth. One thing about them, I kind of tried to draw it here. It was hard to draw it by hand. I'll show you on Desmos in just a minute. But 2 to the x has a little bit more of a gentle curve, and then as you go to the higher numbers as a base, that curve becomes a little bit more pointed or severe. We'll see some examples. And then a log function is the same shape, it's just reflected, and it's reflected in that line y equals x. And so if the exponential looks like this, then the log looks something like this, reflected over that line. And so depending on which way your curve is, you might want to use an exponential, you might want to use a logarithmic. I'm going to go to the next slide. And here I'm talking about how do you move it. So you have an exponential. How do you get it to go where you want it to go? Well, this would be like your standard form kind of an exponential. And if you move that h left and right, or change that h number, that's going to move it left and right. If you want to move it up and down, you change the k value. And I will show this in the video in just a second. And then to make it a sharper turn, adjust the base. Instead of using a base 2, try to use base 10, or I said base 0.5. That's not accurate because a base 0.5 is going to point it the other way, and I'll show that to you in a second. Okay, so again, that's not a 0.5, it's just a 5. And then remember that the function has some parts that are nearly straight and other parts that are curved. You can use your domain restrictions to focus on whatever part of the curve you want to focus on. And so in other words, if you have an exponential, maybe you want to use this curved part, and so you use your domain restrictions to focus on that curved part. But maybe you don't want a curved part. You actually have like a straight line and you're just trying to fit something in there. Well, this part is the straight line. Practically, I mean, when you graph it, it's going to look very much like a straight line, or even over here. So use your domain restrictions to make that, and just use the kind of almost straight part that you want to use. So that's for exponential. The h is going to move it left and right. The k is going to move it up and down. And so log functions are actually going to work very similarly. That if you want that shape, and the log shape would be kind of like this, then the h is going to move it left and right. The k is going to move it up and down. If you want it sharper, make your log base. Instead of base 2, try base 10 or base 5 or something like that, and that's going to make that turn a little bit of a sharper turn. And then again, you can use the straight part or the curved part. Let's take a look at Desmos. Okay, let's say that you now want to put this into Desmos and you want to fit it to your project and you're not really sure what to do. So what I did here is I put in that parent function with the h's and the k's in it so that I can move it. And so I'm going to do one with the exponential and one with the log. Right now I'm going to hide that log so we can focus our attention here. Okay, so the h, as I said a minute ago, is going to move it left and right. So it's just moving that line left or right. That's all it's doing. And the k is going to move it up and down. And so if I want to move it up and down, I can go like this and move it up and down. I'm going to show you the same thing with the logs. So once again, here's my log. If I want to move it left or right, it's going to move in this way. If I'm going to move it up and down, I'm going to use the k. Now, I want to go back for just a second and show you that other exponential with it. Notice this has a base 2, right? This base 2 has a more gradual curve. Remember that a log without a number of a base, what base is that? That's base 10. See how it's like more pointy, more steep? This one is more gradual. You see what I mean? Like that curved area. So if you want a kind of a wider radius, you should use something like base 2. If you want a smaller radius, use something like base 10, and that will change that radius of that curve for you. Okay, let's see what happens when we put in our picture. So here is my minion, and I'm going to put in my curves, and I need to figure out where do I want to put them. First of all, just for simplicity, I think I'm going to turn off the log and I'm just going to stick with the exponential right now. Okay, where I have it is just random, but I could maybe make it fit to the goggles, but the goggles seem like a circle, so I don't think I'm going to do that. I can maybe make it fit to the mouth, or maybe this kind of crooked part of the mouth. That might be a good one. I actually think I'm going to go to these overalls. Do you see how that could kind of match up there? I need to get it there though. Right now, when I started, I'm going to go back to 0 and 0 for my H and K. Because when you start, I can't remember if it starts at 0 or 1, but it's going to start at one of them. And you need to move. Okay, I can tell I need to move to the right. So I'm going to take my H value and I'm going to move it until it kind of gets, well, maybe about there. And it's 4.7. I'm going to make it 5 just to make it simpler on myself. All right, I've got a 5. It's kind of where it needs to be, except it needs to go down, right? So I'm going to move it down. That's pretty good, right? Let's just go all the way down to 2. Okay, I'm going to make this a different color so we can see it. If you don't know how to change colors, you go to the settings and you click on that and you change the color. So now it's black. I can see it a little bit better. I think that actually matches up pretty well. So I'm going to type in a new equation. I'm going to type it in. I'm going to use this format, but I'm going to put numbers in for the H and the K. So I'm going to say y equals 2 to the power of x minus 5. And then space over, so I'm down there again, plus -2, or we could say -2. Okay, look how well, I'm going to turn this one off so we don't have to look at that one. Look how well that fits. Pretty well, right? But now, of course, we want to turn on those domain restrictions to get it to stop from place to place. So what I might do on this one, I might say, let's just go from 0 to 7 and see what that looks like. So 0 is less than x is less than 7. And now I've got this part. That's pretty good. But 7 might be too much. Maybe 6.5. Okay, that actually, look, that's really good, right? That fits. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I want it on the other side of the overalls as well. So I'm going to take this and I'm actually going to copy it and paste it right here. And I'm going to erase those domain restrictions. Okay, this obviously works for that one. Check, got that. What we want those on the other side. How could we get it on the other side? Well, we could reflect it, right? Okay, what happens? How do you reflect something? You put in a negative. So what if I put a negative in front? Did not go the right way. Okay, what if I put a negative in front of the x? Aha, that actually worked pretty well. So again, I've got it set up. I did a reflection, and now I'm going to put my domain restrictions, and I might just stick with the same numbers here, but going the other way from -6.5 is less than x is less than 0. And look, that does a pretty good job. Okay, I'm going to turn off my minion just so we can see. Okay, look, that for the overalls, that looks like it's going to fit pretty well. All right, so the main thing was how to move it up and down. That's changing your H and your X. How to flip it if you want to flip it, and that's putting a negative, deciding where to put that negative, and then just doing your domain restrictions to cut it off where you want to cut it off to. One other thing is I did say that I would show you what does it look like if it's 0.5 to the x. Okay, so the black line here is 2 to the x power. The red line is 2 to the 1/2 x power. So it is a reflection also, but that's just a different way that you can do it if you wanted to do it that way. So just keep that in mind if you need to do a reflection as well. Okay, I hope that this helps you put these into your project so that you can get some lines that fit and make an excellent drawing.